Welcome to our session today on internationalizing your academic programs here at UWM. My name is Christine Wolf, and I'm the Assistant Director of Global and International Studies. And we're really excited to welcome you today so you can hear more about all of the different program offerings we have and learn also from current students and alumni, which we have on our panel. Before we introduce the rest of the panel, however, I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping items just to keep everybody on track. First, if you're not speaking today, if you could please keep your microphone off, that would be really helpful to cut down on any distracting background noise. Also, the session is being recorded. So if you're uncomfortable in any way with being a part of that recording, you can log off now, and then this session will be available on the Study Abroad website and the Global Studies website too. Finally, if you have any questions that you would like to put forward, and we hope that you will, please feel free to use the chat function, or there's even a little hand that you can raise, and one of us will get to your question as soon as we can. So let's go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel. I'll let the panelists introduce themselves. First, I'd like Sophia, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sophia Betcher. I am a current Global Studies student. I am participating in our Global Communications track, and I'm also pursuing a French minor at the same time. On top of that, I also work here in the Global Studies department on our Global Studies team as an administrative assistant and as our social media manager. So,
thank you. Jeremy?
Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Booth. I'm a 2012 graduate of the Global Studies program, the Global Security track. I'm currently working at UWM at the Center for International Education, managing various international education activities and grants and scholarship programs. And I'm really excited here to talk about the wonderful study abroad, internship, and career development experience I had when I was a global studies major. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And finally, Drea.
Hi, I'm Alexandria Cedar, or Drea. I am a global studies security alum, year 2015. I am working right now as an evaluation specialist for UWM's NRC National Resource Center grant. And I am also involved with Engineers Without Borders USA and a mentor for Engineers Without Borders here at UWM.
Great, thank you so much. We also have with us today Ramona Washington, who is part of our wonderful Study Abroad staff, and she's going to be monitoring the chat box today for us and fielding questions. Ramona, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. Hi, my name is Ramona Washington, and I'm one of the Study Abroad coordinators in the Study Abroad office. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so the first thing I would like to do today is walk you through a presentation that's going to help you understand the differences between global and international studies as two different degree programs here on campus. And then the presentation is going to end up also giving you kind of a flavor for the internship site development we've been doing in the global studies program and what kind of opportunities might be waiting for you. So first off, introduction to international programs. Some of you may not be aware that UWM has two different majors that sound very similar, global and international studies. The first program I'd like to talk about today is the Global Studies degree program. One thing that's really notable about Global Studies is that it was the first program of its kind in the country. It was created, about 20 years ago by a very dedicated staff and faculty within the Center for International Education to meet the needs of students that they were seeing at that time who really wanted to forge an international career, but maybe weren't able to develop all of the skills, soft and hard, that they were going to need to be successful in that direction. So Global Studies was born out of that idea. And the thing that makes it so unique and dynamic is that it requires extensive foreign language study, first of all. Right now, we require 6 semesters of a single foreign language, which helps to move students into kind of a basic working proficiency. But many students and the alums that you'll hear from Jeremy and Drea later on in the presentation actually completed much more foreign language and can talk about the benefits of that. We also offer a very dynamic, internationally focused curriculum that's transdisciplinary. And what that means is that we draw on fields and coursework from all across campus. So it's not uncommon for a global studies student to be taking courses from the College of Nursing, perhaps the Lubar School of Business, the College of Letters and Science, and more. And this way, it really sets you up as a young professional to start to understand in a systems thinking venue how different fields and areas of expertise all work together to tackle the most intractable and pressing problems that the world is facing. Obviously, a major skill that a global studies student would want to have. And then in order to kind of narrow down your field of focus, by the time you're a junior in our program, we do ask you to narrow down your field of focus into one of 5 different tracks. These are career tracks. And you can see them on the screen: management, security, communications, health, and sustainability. Just picking out one to talk about briefly, the health track is our newest track. It was put together in 2017 before we knew we were going to be facing the COVID-19 pandemic. And clearly there's never been a more fascinating and important time to have students studying global issues and health. So I hope that this gives you an idea of how you can direct your interest into a career track within this large field of global studies. And finally, the thing that really makes global studies stand out is that we require 12 experiential learning credits. And how students complete this is they get to choose 2 of 3 different options. The first option is 3 to 9 credits of study abroad. This can be a short-term summer program, or as a student, you can complete more study abroad credits, 12 or more. You can go abroad for a semester or a year. This is just the minimum required. The second option would be 1 to 6 credits of a domestic internship. So an internship based somewhere in the US, and of course it can be Milwaukee, but the internship would have to have an international focus and relate to your track. And then finally, the third option would be an international internship, an internship overseas. And again, this would also need to relate to a student's track. Now, international studies, on the other hand, is a major within the College of Letters and Science. Also full of an interesting, globally focused curriculum, again, transdisciplinary, drawing on departments from all over campus to come together to give that well-rounded, holistic picture of international affairs. This program does require only 4 semesters of language study. Remember, in GS, it was 6. But students are encouraged and often do study more foreign language. 3 option areas with this major. So remember, in global studies, there were 5 different career tracks. With international studies, there are 3 options. Option A has a political focus. Option B is an economics focus. And option C is a language and culture focus. And in this particular instance, it does require students to complete 6 semesters of foreign language. So that's the exception. Here, study abroad and internships are very much encouraged, but they are not required. And why, you might ask? Well, you'll notice between the 2 programs, we do have a little something for everybody, right? Not every student is perhaps able to study abroad in the traditional way, and we'll get to this in a moment, the virtual opportunities and what that can mean for you. But in the past, if you are a non-traditional age student, for example, with a full-time job, or perhaps you're a student parent, going abroad or having an internship abroad would really be difficult for a student in those circumstances. So you can see between the 2 programs, depending on your needs, your lifestyle, and so forth, we have an option that will work for you. Now, however, I'm really excited with all of the virtual opportunities that have opened up to us. We can see how no matter where you are in life, studying abroad or interning abroad virtually now becomes an option. So the accessibility to abroad elements in a program have never been greater before. So this is really a good thing and something that we can discuss further in the presentation. So what do we mean when we say an international internship? Well, for global studies, an international internship is an example of experiential learning. that takes place in the US or internationally for a specified period of time. Typically for a 3-credit internship, we require 160 hours worth of work time. So that's what I mean by a specified period of time. So international internships, what are the different kinds of placements? Here is a photograph of one of our alums. His name is Darius, and as you can see, he completed his internship several years ago in Senegal. So how do I find this internship, you may be asking yourself? Well, good question. Some of them are independently arranged, meaning that you as the student find your internship yourself, either through your own research or activating your networking connections within your family, your neighborhood, organizations that you belong to. And you find it just like you would find a job. The second option is that you might opt to complete your internship as part of an established study abroad program. So for example, if you decide to study abroad for a semester in Spain, you might choose a study abroad provider with the help of Ramona in the study abroad office that also provides an option to complete an internship abroad. This is a very efficient way to go for students who opt into this, because then you can complete 2 of those 3 options for global studies in one go. And then finally, arranging an internship through a placement service. So you may not be aware, but there are companies that's all that they do, is that they place undergrads in internships all around the world, whether it be in person or virtually. We've worked with many different companies informally over the years, or I should say our students have. One that I'll mention here is the Intern Group. You can Google it and find it very easily. The Intern Group is special to us because we recently made an arrangement with them that all UWM students receive a discount when they work with the Intern Group, not just global and international studies students. So if you're a student of another major, you can take advantage of that too. So what is an appropriate placement for global studies? Here's an example of another alum of ours, Carrie, who finished her internship in Dublin, Ireland. And she is an example of a student who actually paid a placement provider to place her in that internship. So again, just to recap, internships must be relevant to your track. So for example, if you're a communications track student, let's say, we've had many examples recently of communications track students completing internships working in social media or in marketing. And ideally, if you can, we love it when students choose internships where they can use their foreign language. Why? Because performing an internship, working in a business in real time, whether it be in person or virtually, and using your foreign language skills on the job is the perfect way to start perfecting those language skills, to learning new vocabulary in your field and so on. I can't recommend that enough. I've seen people come back from their internships making huge leaps in their foreign language ability. And it's after that experience that people really come back infused with self-confidence and then opt to go on for more language study. So if you can work out an internship where you can really grow those skills, that's really the optimal situation. Always be thinking about, what do I want to get out of this internship? How do I make this the most meaningful for me? That's the way to really make this experience rich and not just another check off on your to-do list. Here's an example of a poster that I've created. I've presented this poster at a couple of conferences, one international conference actually, all about our internship program here at UWM because it's so unique. If you do any research on it, you'll find most programs do not require internships. So people are often very curious about how we've pulled this off. You can see there are some alumni outcomes in the center of the poster. And then if you look at the top of the screen under discussions in the top, I guess that's the right-hand corner, you'll see kind of the 4 components that the internship experience really brings forward for students when they're working with us here at UWM. So foreign language acquisition, we just talked about it. It's one of the #1 things that you can mine out of this experience that you're going to be able to use for the rest of your life. Cross-cultural competencies. When you're working abroad, whether it be in person or virtually, you're developing these cross-cultural and diversity competencies that can take you anywhere in your career. People who can work well in teams, people who can put themselves in the shoes of others, who can relate and put into context other people's experiences, their historical context, their politics, their current events. These are the people who are going to rise to the top. And that's the kind of thing that an internship abroad allows you to develop. Global networking, of course, when you're working abroad, you get to grow your global network. And how many of your classmates get to do that as undergraduates, to say that they have networking connections in different countries? It's a very unique thing to have developed so early on in your professional life. And also global career experience and competencies. Just being able to put this on your resume as an undergraduate before you've graduated is really a different kind of feather in your cap, and it really helps to make you stand out. Another thing that we offer in our program, but that's also open to all students on campus, is International Studies, or IS 260, Introduction to International Careers. This course is undergoing a course redesign at the moment, and what's really exciting about this is when we do offer it again, hopefully in the spring of 2022, it's going to have a water focus. And you might be listening to this and thinking, well, why would I want to do that? I don't really have any interest in having a career in water. Well, what this course will do is it will show you how, if we take a global crisis or a global issue like water and access to clean water, and we look at it from different disciplinary and lenses of different expertise, we can see how we're going to need people from all different career fields working on problems like water access to really solve problems and to bring solutions to the whole world. So when we bring together, business students, communication students, linguists, social work students, everybody coming together and working on how can we solve these problems. That's what this kind of class is going to show you, where the opportunities this century are really going to be and how you fit into them. So finding an internship is good training for finding a job in the future. That may be obvious, but it really is true. Once you go through this exercise, again, it really builds your confidence, it builds your resume, and it really makes you that much more ready to move beyond college. So now the fun part. I get to show you some of the photographs of the internship site development I've been doing for the last couple of years for the Global Studies degree program. The first site visit that I did was to Accra, Ghana. And this is a shot right in one of the main squares in Accra. This is a monument to the freedom that they gained from Britain only in 1957. So one of the most fascinating things about actually going abroad is learning more and more about these cultures and really expanding your knowledge about who you're working with. And I wanted to highlight today an organization called Saha Global. This is a small nonprofit organization that was actually started by an American. And what they do is they bring clean water and micro-enterprise opportunities to women in rural villages all across the country. These next few slides are just going to take you through some of the people that I met in this particular village that I visited, women bringing water up to the water filtration treatment tank, the poly tank, the black tank that you see in the foreground. That's where the water is being filtered through, that the women are bringing up from the water hole. And then it just comes out that one little spigot. And what's interesting about Saha Global is not only are they bringing clean water and all the advantages that brings in terms of health to the people that they're serving, but the women in the villages are trained to set up the water site, to maintain them, and then they charge their fellow villagers a small fee and to have access to the water. And so then it becomes a small business for these women. So it's also generating income for several families in these villages. Here's the village itself. that I visited. This is a typical home for the villagers, and also you can see in the middle that there's a fire. All the cooking is still done over open fire in this particular part of Ghana. And then in the fall, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Tokyo, Japan. Very different setting, very different kinds of internships. And this is an example of a street scene near where I was staying in Tokyo. And the next couple slides are of different temples and cultural sites. And it's so wonderful to be able to bring back these images for you as students so you can get a feel for what to expect when you have an internship in one of these locations. And so here's a picture of me meeting with a current classmate of yours now. In the foreground, that's Anthony Miller. He was studying abroad during this time in Tokyo last fall. And in the middle is Josephine Kirkland, who is a former student and alum of our program, who has been living and working in Japan for about 3 years now. And here I am meeting with 2 other alums who are a married couple who met as students in the Global Studies program. Jared in the foreground was my contact on LinkedIn. And a little plug for LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please make one. They're free, easy to make, and you can connect with former students like this right now. We also have 2 LinkedIn groups for alums for both GS and IS on LinkedIn that you can connect to now as a student. So you can start growing your network before you even have your internship. And this was an example of one of my contacts in Tokyo with a placement organization called Sakai Internships. He was wonderful and helpful in that this particular organization I was made aware of through a colleague here on campus. So I was networking even here with faculty to find this organization, and they place students at no cost. So there's just a whole range of options, and I encourage you to reach out to me for more information about anything that you're hearing here today. A little recap, international internships. How do I prepare? How do I start? Well, there's lots of information on the Global Studies website, as well on the Study Abroad website for you to get started with, different placement firms and different ideas about where to look for information. So know where your resources are and use them. Prepare a resume if you don't already have one, and kind of a basic cover letter that you can keep updating for different opportunities as they arise. It's important to be prepared so you can jump on opportunities as you see them, because deadlines, as you know, come up really quick. Create learning goals for your internship. Again, is it foreign language that you're really focused on? Do you want to learn how to use technology? Are you interested in growing your network? What are your goals for yourself? Make sure that you know what you want to get out of it going into it so you can make the most of the experience. Again, activating professional, familial, social networks. Keep talking about what you want to everybody you meet. You never know who Uncle Bob might work with downtown, who has a connection to a company in a location you're interested in, and all of a sudden you have an internship connection. There is a student organization on campus called ISIC that many global studies students have done internships with and have been involved with the group itself. So I encourage you to check that out. They do have some good placements and they are at a low cost. And plus, it's just a great way to get involved on campus. And again, don't forget about the fee-based services. Eli Abroad is another example. Carrie Davidson, who was in a previous slide, actually used Eli Abroad. And the intern group, and there are many others as well. Again, that information is available on our websites. Using the Study Abroad office, can't recommend them enough. An amazing campus resource. Just stop by, have a conversation with them about opportunities, whether you want to plan ahead for a face-to-face experience or you're thinking about a virtual experience. Now is the time. And our alumni network. You met some alums in my slides. They're out there and they're willing to help. So get connected and don't discount the power of making those connections now. All right, academic credit. Global studies students must get academic credit for their internships. There's a course that I teach called Global 489, and there's a whole process that I walk students through in order to have their internships approved, and then most students complete the course for 3 credits. Learning objectives during the internship are to evaluate independently conceived learning goals, which we've talked about, and apply cross-cultural work experiences to a future global career. Students end the class by turning in a portfolio that has professional work samples in it, or now there's an option to complete a blog, which is really great because you have this whole catalog of everything you've done that you can share with a future employer. So that's quite enough for me. If you have any questions about anything you've seen here today, feel free to put a question in the chat box or email me at cawolf@uwm.edu. So with that, I would like to turn the mic over now to Sophia, our current student in the Global Studies program, to tell you a little bit about her experiences. Sophia?
Hi, guys. So I had kind of a roundabout way of finding the Global Studies program. I came into UWM knowing kind of what my interests were and sort of had an idea of where I wanted to go with my career, but I didn't exactly. I knew that I wanted and I decided the best way to find out how to best go about that was going to an advisor. And that's actually how I found Christine, who told me all about our Global Studies program and told me about all the benefits that you just heard about. And that's how I found out what a great fit is for me. I'd say for me, the thing that really drew me to Global Studies was the fact that we have the opportunity to really prioritize our foreign language study. I knew that I wanted to study French, and I had considered being a French major, but I also knew that it would be nice to have the opportunity to kind of explore some other courses outside of just French language study. And I think that's why Global Study is such a great option, because it's very diverse and versatile, and you have the opportunity to take a really interdisciplinary course load. So I've been able to take French while also getting a really nice, well-rounded background of taking some economics courses, some history courses, some political theory courses, and you just feel like you have a really great foundation for your education that Global Studies gives you from our core curriculum. So that was one of the main things that drew me to it. Also, obviously, I think most of us can agree the opportunity to study abroad is a big draw. I knew that I really wanted to study abroad during college, and the fact that Global Studies requires you to study abroad was a big plus for me, because I was like, okay, I have no excuse but not to do it. So I think that's really one of the great highlights. And then obviously, as we were just discussing, the internship part of Global Studies is really unique. And I think that's something that, while perhaps a bit intimidating to some of us, is really great. It pushes you to go out of your comfort zone, seek out an international internship, which, as Christine has explained, is really a unique feather in your cap later on when you're applying to grad school, looking for jobs. So overall, I think the different experiences that Global Studies offers you and also kind of pushes you to seek out is really what makes it just such a great program. And that's what really drew me to it. And then, sorry, took bad notes. I will talk a little bit about my study abroad and internship experience, just because they were somewhat unique due to COVID-19. I was actually in Paris this past semester in the spring when the pandemic hit. So I started off with an in-person study abroad experience, and it actually transitioned into a virtual experience, which is something that I think hopefully the rest of you will have one or the other and not do both, but you never know. So that was a really interesting experience for me, but I try to see it as a positive, because I both got to have that, you know, the in-person time abroad, and I got to live in Paris and have some connection with French professors and see what it's like going to a French university. But I also got to have the unique and somewhat important new experience of a virtual education, which I think is becoming a lot more prominent, especially with the current state of the world. So that was pretty good for me. And I also completed a virtual internship this summer. It was through an organization based in Prague called Sherpa's Ride. They're actually a tourism company that focuses in ski tourism. They're based in Prague, but they operate mainly in Hokkaido, Japan, and Norway during the winter season. And they take they lead ski tourism expeditions. So that was a really interesting placement for me because I had so little knowledge and experience about tourism, specifically ski tourism, going into the placement, but it was very fun to learn all about what they do. And it was really great working with a very small kind of specialized team of people who had found their passion life, skiing, and found a way to make, their hobby and their joy, their career. So that was a really great experience, especially working in the tourism end of things. It worked well for my communications track placement. So looking forward, I am hoping to take a gap year after I graduate this spring, since I am a senior this year. And I'm hoping to apply to the Peace Corps, actually. So I can kind of take a little bit of time off before going into grad school just to solidify my ideas of what I might want to go into later in my career. I think that's about it for me.
Thanks, Sophia. That was great. Jeremy, would you like to present next?
Sure. So my name's Jeremy Booth. I'm, again, a 2012 graduate of the Global Studies program. I came to UWM. I grew up in Shorewood, close to UWM, but I was kind of listless, didn't know what I was interested in. Kind of knew I was into geopolitics, whatever that meant. But I think what really attracted me to the Global Studies program originally was I felt that traditional international relations degrees, traditional political science degrees didn't incorporate marginalized voices enough. So they were too specialized, too focused on a particular field. And what I really liked about global studies was incorporating sociology, women's studies, critical histories into one degree program. So that's what initially kind of drew me in, is this transdisciplinary focus and this lifting up of traditionally marginalized voices within sort of international relations disciplines. So what I did with the degree is I kind of mixed it with a women's studies minor. For my coursework, I took a global feminisms class, I took a feminist research methods class, and that really synced well with my interests in also geopolitics and conflict, and finally in the Middle East. As I went on, I started to get really interested in the Middle East aspect of things. So when it was time to come study abroad, I chose Cairo, Egypt. So I'm going to share my screen with y'all and show you some pics from my time abroad. Just let me know if this isn't coming up, guys. Can everyone see that?
It's loading now.
Okay.
I can see it, Jeremy.
Awesome. So when it was time to study abroad, I'd been studying Arabic. My interest in geopolitics sort of narrowed down to the Middle East. So Arabic was a perfect fit for my language portion of global studies. And I chose Egypt as my destination for study abroad. I think one of the outcomes of the degree for me that was really essential, both for my personal development and my professional development, was the sense of independence, of getting outside of my comfort zone, of organizing my own professional and academic plan on my own. So I jetted off to Cairo. I was there for a year as part of a program called Ahmed East that really focused on both Arabic study and also on Middle East studies, a perfect combination for me. And I was actually going to stay the full year and do my internship in Egypt. But what ended up happening was I was living in a historic moment as part of my study abroad experience. The Arab uprisings kicked off in 2010 right at the beginning of my second semester. And for me, it was a frightening experience, but actually it was one that really clarified my interests, what I'm interested in studying, what I'm interested in doing as a global citizen, bringing change to my own society, seeing through the lens of Egyptians, their struggles against injustice. It really clarified for me where I stand as a citizen in my own country. So the uprising was, it was a frightening experience, but an incredible one in the sense that it really helped me put my theories that I'd been learning about in the classroom and really bringing that to life through my study abroad experience. So I couldn't stay in Egypt due to the instability, unfortunately. And the really wonderful study abroad team at UWM transitioned me to Jordan, where I completed my study abroad program in the spring of 2011. So here I did my internship at the Jordan Investment Board. This is an agency of the monarchy in Jordan that tries to draw in economic investment into the country from abroad. And the really interesting thing about working for this agency was that coming from Egypt, they were actually trying to draw more investment into the country because of all the instability in other parts of the Arab world. So I really got this firsthand experience in how economics and sort of the business field interacts with geopolitics and conflict. And it was a really amazing experience. I got to travel to Israel and Palestine. And I loved the experience so much. I gained so much confidence from my time in Egypt and so many connections. My network grew exponentially that when I returned to the United States and graduated, I just had to go back. So in 2012, I went back. I worked for Ahmed East, an educational nonprofit. I got to travel, and I really became an independent person, living on my own, financially independent. And I have to say, without that study abroad experience, I never would have taken this dive. Finally, due to continued instability in Egypt, I had to come home. But those connections I made abroad, those skills I developed, led me to a job with the National Defense University. Now, another aspect of the study abroad program was due to the assistance of our UWM study abroad office. I received a Boren Scholarship for International Study. This, the Boren Fellowship really paid for most of my study abroad program, and it also opened up pathways for me into a federal career. So I worked at the National Defense University as part of this Boren Fellowship program. And I think this is really key because studying a language, especially a less commonly taught language like Arabic, can really open up opportunities for federal funding, whether that's a Fulbright or a Boren, that can elevate your professional network, that can give you the skills and language competencies that can lead to a federal career or a nonprofit career. So I worked at National Defense University for 2 years, working with international officers from Egypt, Turkey, all over the world. But I realized the impact of international education on me was so profound. I wanted to come back to Milwaukee and return to UWM, where now I work for the Center for International Education. So let me just unshare that so you can see me again. So kind of in conclusion, I think the GS degree is vital in these times for 2 reasons. And it was vital for me for these reasons as well. I think the interdisciplinarity, the transdisciplinarity, that aspect of it is crucial, fundamentally crucial for the time we live in right now. We need professionals and we need citizens that understand the different dynamics we're going through as a global society. We need professionals that understand how climate change interacts with geopolitics, interacts with the business world. And I really think that this degree is the perfect preparation for that. The second thing is that I think in an ever-changing world of work, a degree like this presents you with such a broad base of skills that it's really built for this new age of careers. I fundamentally believe that the era of specialization is coming to an end, and that we need professionals with a broad skill set, the background in economics, history, analytical thinking, languages. And not only will this produce more empathetic global citizens, but more effective professionals. So those are my two kind of conclusions about the GS degree. It was a transformative experience for me. And yeah, I just love GS so much. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for sharing your story with us. That's wonderful. And finally, last but not least, Drea. Can't hear you.
Always. Hi, everyone. I'm Drea, and I'm here to talk a little bit about my journey through global studies and what it's taught me in complexity, community, and connection. As you heard in the introduction, I currently work for UWM doing evaluation, but I also do a lot of work currently with international development. I'm the vice chair of the Standing Content Committee for Project Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning for Interiors Without Borders USA. So I help people understand how to do culturally humble work. And a lot of that is based on what I learned as a global studies student. My focus has been primarily in Latin America. I did, before the global health track, I did global studies and chose some electives that were in the health field. And then I also studied Spanish. I did some Portuguese, and then I did Latin American and Caribbean studies, as well as peace and conflict studies. I'm going to share my screen as well. I have a PowerPoint up. I think this is it. Here we go. So yeah, like I said, I could talk for a couple hours about what global studies did for me, but so I came as a first generation student to UWM. I initially was pre-med because that's what I kind of thought. No, it was one of the degrees that when you get to college, you go and you change the world by being a doctor. What I liked about that was the idea of helping people and maybe doing Doctors Without Borders. So I enrolled in the living learning community called Local to Global in Sandberg Hall, and I took classes with Ames McGinnis, Global Studies 101. I continued my Spanish language, and I met a bunch of people who were also interested in global themes and topics, and I kind of realized that I liked that a lot more than my psychology and biology classes, and I became a global studies major. I kind of took the leap. So aside from in the classroom getting a really transdisciplinary experience with global education, so economics, poli-sci, culture, language, I also made a lot of international connections inside and outside of the classroom. So that larger picture is everyone from my floor, from that living learning community. We hung out almost every weekend together. In the upper corner, Nora, who is from China, she made me and my friend Alicia traditional Chinese food, and then we would share traditional US food together once a month. And then the picture below is actually, I was a study abroad buddy, and that was a photo sent to me from one of the students from Korea who I became very close with. So even before I left the United States, I was already getting exposure to different cultures and different ways of knowing through meeting people from different countries. So then I applied to travel with Engineers Without Borders. I had no engineering experience, and I happened to come across this opportunity from my mom, who works at an engineering firm. Hector Fuentes, who works with her, said they're looking for Spanish speakers, and he drove from Chicago. So what Christine said earlier about tapping your existing network, this was a very pivotal experience in my life. And it was all because my mom told one of her coworkers that I spoke Spanish and wanted to travel. So I was actually selected to go my first year ever with the organization because of my global studies coursework that I had taken up to that point. I was doing the community engagement piece and my Spanish language skills. I've now gone 6 times, and like I mentioned earlier, as a mentor and supervisor for global study students and master students who do their field work and thesis work with us. So that one trip that I got because of my mom's network and my global studies classes has really changed my life. While I'm in Guatemala, we work with a rural Mayan community in the Ushil Triangle, which I highlighted here on the map. Engineers Without Borders brings them water systems and works alongside them while they teach us about their culture. And then we use local knowledge and expertise for WASH education, which is water, hygiene, and sanitation. And it was really my first introduction to the cultural humility piece. Admittedly, I thought, oh gosh, we're going to go save these people and give them water. And it was really the mentorship I received in this organization, my global studies coursework, and just seeing the amazing leadership there, that it really challenged that narrative that I had been taught so long about what international development looks like, and just recognizing that it really is a partnership with communities. And that definitely painted the rest of my work at UWM. So even though global studies is mostly marketed as a professional degree, I took more of a research route, and I did undergraduate research with the McNair program about my experience in Guatemala and integrating some of the things I learned in my Latin American studies classes and my global studies classes, while Dr. Goss was my helper, I guess my supervisor for this project. Dr. Ames McGinnis was really instrumental in this as well for me, in kind of recognizing the root causes and all of the connections to why there's mistrust in this region with the government and how that affected their health outcomes. So that exposure to all these different areas of globalization through the different subject matters and different experiential hands-on experiences really helped me see complexity. And I don't think I would have gotten that with a degree that wasn't like global studies, that had me take classes in all of these different areas. So then I did an academic year in Quito, Ecuador, at the University of San Francisco de Quito. I was able to spend a month at a research station there after my study abroad. And that's where you see the swimming picture and the canopy picture. And I was helping through Gilman. I had the Gilman Scholarship. I met somebody who was working with National Geographic, and they let me tag along and look at one of their plant tracking and animal tracking programs. In the middle is just speaking to what I talked about earlier, some of those connections. One of my best friends now I studied abroad with at in Quito, she ended up doing Peace Corps, and now she's in Chicago working for the federal government, and we've been able to be great resources for each other professionally and personally ever since. I did my international internship with CISV Ecuador. So it is a peace building organization founded after World War II, and it hosts a camp of students age 14, in my case, from 9 different countries. It's a 3-week immersion camp, and you collaborate with young professionals from all around those countries, and then the youth come together and you do educational content review. Ironically, I was able to both use my French, Portuguese, and Spanish in a camp in Ecuador with a Spanish-speaking class, so that was a really cool experience for me. And then, so going back to some of the key lessons I learned from global studies was the adaptability, the flexibility, and just really how I set the path for the, started on my path where I am right now. With studying abroad, I can't speak enough to how, if you have the opportunity to do it, to just go. I never thought in a million years that I would have been able to live abroad, especially being one of the first people in my family to go to college. But there's something very empowering about going to a new place and establishing yourself and building community. I was living my life in Spanish, and so I was able to walk away with some Spanish language skills as well. And just with the Spanish language skills, being able to communicate with somebody in their first language, just how deep your understanding of that culture and that relationship is. You learn to be really flexible as well in global studies. A lot of the work is group. And especially from my master's program, before global studies, I wouldn't touch a group project. And it was actually obligatory for one of our upper level classes. And that really taught me a lot about teamwork and how to work with people from different perspectives. Because one of the beauties of global studies for me was that it drew people from all these different country area of interest, but also degree tracks and things like that. In the foundation for my future, I actually went back to do some of my thesis work in the Ecuadorian Amazon. I was able to compete and represent UWM at Oxford University in a systems thinking competition based on some of my very first work as a global studies student. in Ecuador. And the community I built in the Global Studies program is probably one of the favorite things I've taken away. So here is kind of just a smattering of the different people I've come to know and love through being a global studies major, my study abroad, my internship, traveling with Engineers Without Borders. These people have not only been professional resources to me, actually Jeremy helped get me the job at UWM as fellow GS alum, but have also served as support for my personal and professional growth. And I think, oh, you can't see it as well here, the biggest value of global studies right now is kind of summed up to me in this quote. Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Especially right now in this is a very tumultuous time in history, and it's not going to be the first or last time we see people not understanding one another. And something that I've been very blessed from the global studies degree is that I come with curiosity to the world and meeting others. And that right now has really prepared me to excel and also build relationships in the current state of the world. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Drea. I can't thank all of our presenters enough today for sharing their stories and their perspectives with us. It makes me so proud to be a part of the program. So Sophia, Jeremy, and Drea, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. Ramona, thank you so much for serving as our behind the scenes person. Really appreciate that. And hopefully this presentation will be seen and will help a lot of students to understand the differences between the programs and why they would want to be a part of them. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.